Hello and welcome to another episode of the FSA podcast. I'm your host, Brent Cromer, and I'm here with a special guest, Stefan Kunz. So, Stefan, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell them a little bit about you.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? My name's Stefan, and I am the CEO of Pursuit Health and Performance. Um, we're an online fitness coaching company, but we also do a little bit in person in Gilbert, Arizona.
Very cool, my friend. How long you been doing that?
Uh, Online, I took a dive into the online thing probably in, what was it? Actually, the beginning of May of 2021.
Nice,
But I've been coaching for about 11 years, so a
nice.
while.
Okay. So you've been doing the in person for a long time, and then
Yeah,
transitioned post
yeah,
COVID, right?
basically.
I feel like a lot of people kind of made that move like post COVID, like after everything and all the dust settled, people started to realize, oh wait, like this is actually like a very viable thing to do online.
Yeah, it was a weird journey for me because I started kind of give you like a little background.
Mhm.
I started my journey in 2000. Well, I was like kind of an athlete my whole life and played like tons of different sports. And then
Mhm.
I joined the military in 2010, and that's when I like started my training career. I was a PTL, so I was a physical training leader, basically trained
Very cool.
members of the Air Force that failed their PT test. So I kind of got like voluntold and thrown into that. But coming from like wrestling and martial arts, I was like, let's
Mhm.
go. Like this is awesome. And I was pretty fit. I did well in my test, so they made me do that. And I was just kind of training people on the side. And then 2014, I deployed to Afghanistan. I had a bunch of time on my hands,
Wow.
so I got my first CPT and kind of did a lot within the fitness industry. Like I opened up well, I didn't open it up. I helped manage the first F45 that opened in Arizona.
Wow.
I worked at like Anytime Fitness private gyms, did like group fitness instructing, did one-on-one training. Then I tried to like kind of get into fitness modeling. Then I worked for physical therapy. So I did like a
Been
lot.
all over, man.
Yeah, to like find my niche of what I wanted to do. And I kind of hopped back from doing like private training at self-made training facility that's like a franchise that's kind of all over.
Right.
And then to going and starting my own thing. The hard part for me was I was going to college from 2017 to 2020 for exercise science, and I
Okay.
graduated in March of 20. So literally right when the pandemic hit.
Boy,
I was
what
actually
timing.
working at yeah, I was working at a gym and they closed down, of course, and so I went into project management for about a year and a half, and I loved the job. And then like I ended up getting married in April, and right after that I was like kind of training people out of my garage and doing stuff during the time and making like a couple extra $1,000 was kind of nice, but I was working a
For
lot.
sure.
I had a full-time job.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I have a family and a son and a wife, and I'm like, man, I have to either like go all in or I have to not. And that's when I hired like my first business coach, and it's kind of
Mhm.
history from there.
Talk to me about that. Like when you were like kind of at that point where you're like, do I go all in, like one foot in, one foot out? Like what? Because I know there's a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people all the time who are kind of on that verge of like, do I quit my job? Do I go all in? Like, what was that kind of like for you?
Yeah, it was an interesting ride. Like I'm not gonna lie, I've always been a pretty confident person, and I think
Mhm.
that was that was a time where I just felt in my heart like I need to do this. And the thing
Mhm.
too is, if you guys are listening to this and you're a coach or a trainer, like that like the potential. I mean, this is the way that I made. I'll be super open. I was making like $4,000 a month at my project management job, and if
Mhm.
you have worked as a trainer, like that's pretty decent money for in-person training. I mean, you can make a lot more, but I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm decently comfortable and I don't have to work crazy hours and do all that. And I was just to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to go back to a normal gym because I don't want to work early in the morning and late at night with a
Right.
family and these split shifts. And so I kind of was like, how can I make more money? And then I started training people online. Actually, my first client was like, we did hybrid. So it's a mix. He's like, I'll give you like $1,000 a month. And I was like, dang, that's a lot of money. And
Sold.
yeah, and so I was like, so I only need like to get four of those people if I want to quit my job. Like that's it. I just have to keep
Incredible.
four of those people. And so that's kind of what I did. Like I got a couple people. I basically worked a lot and matched my income. And then after that, I just dove all in. And it was actually crazy. I went in and was working basically two jobs from March until July.
Wow.
And then I bought a house, and the day after I closed, I quit my job because I
Wow.
had to have,
Yes.
like a
Yes. So funny.
career. And
Right.
my dad was like, "You, why did you do that?" And I'm like, "Dude, you don't understand the potential." And so it was scary.
Mhm.
I think my wife was like, didn't she was actually very supportive. She knows me. I'm like,
Mhm.
just trust me. But
Right. I got this.
it was a leap of faith for sure.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. And it's like, I always love hearing people's like leaps of faith because I think, how many people could have been great, could have gone on to do everything that they wanted, but because they get to that point, they get really, really, really close and then they just sit there,
Yeah.
right? It's like the river reframe that we do in sales, right? Like you're just sitting at the edge, you're dipping your toes in over and over, but you never actually hop in. And because of that, you have to just watch other people do their thing while you sit on the edge.
Yeah. That was actually so that was the driving force to me. And this may only resonate with a couple people listening to this, but I actually, when I first got business coaching, I knew I needed help. Like I knew I was a good
Mhm.
coach and a good trainer, but I knew that I didn't, and like decent at sales, but I didn't have the systems, I didn't have the processes. So I'm like,
Right.
man, if I want to scale this, like there's people that are way better than me. And I
Mhm.
like, just like all you guys probably scrolling through Instagram, and I see these people and like, we're gonna make judgments, right? I'm like, man, this guy's like way skinnier and nerdier, or this person has one certification. Like, how are they making this much money? And
Mhm.
for me, it just kind of ate at me. I'm like, I could pick two paths. I could be like, oh, that sucks, and kind of like crap on that person and think of all these, oh, they're so lucky, or oh, it's because they have a lot of followers, like excuse, excuse, excuse. Or I could be
Exactly.
like, they're better at something. Like if they're
Yep.
making 10K a month, and at the time I was online making like one or two just for the
Mhm.
online portion. I'm like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? If I could just
Mhm.
learn to do that, because if I really do believe I'm a better coach, I'm only lacking the things that they're better at, like marketing, sales, processes.
Exactly.
And so at that point, I'm like, I just need to learn that. I need to completely humble myself
I
and
love
be
that.
like, I suck. Teach me everything. And I was just a sponge for a few months, and it worked out well. I hit like 10K online within the first 3 months of getting a coach, and
Yep.
then kind of actually ended up working for the company and helping coaches. So it's really cool.
No, I absolutely love that because at the end of the day, like you can sit and you can sit and scroll and say, "Oh
Yeah.
man, what are they doing? Right? What are they? Oh, they don't have this, they don't have that." But at the end of the day, it's like the big difference is like they went out there and they did something that made them uncomfortable. They put themselves out there in some capacity and it worked for them, right?
Yeah.
Chances are they were probably in your shoes looking at other people too, like, "Oh, look at this guy, look at that guy." It doesn't mean anything until you actually go out and do the thing, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's taking action. And like, just to give you guys a little background, like right now I have 1,100 followers on Instagram. So like, I'm not balling like that. Okay. So it was really scary for
Context.
me because at the time I started online coaching, I had 230 followers. Okay. I didn't use social media. In fact, I told my spouse and my friends I hated it
Yeah.
all the time. I did not post on it. I don't think reels were a thing then, but like I put zero time into my content,
Mhm.
because I tried a couple years ago when Instagram was all pictures, and I put a lot of time and effort into copy, and it like nothing.
Yeah.
Then my expectations, of course, were like, oh, I'll post and I'll just get a ton of followers. Um, and even now, it's been a slow growth. But I think it's just like you have to make a commitment to yourself that like you're going to continue to put in the work regardless of the results. Like
Mhm.
that was my biggest thing. I like told myself, because last time I quit, right, basically with social media, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like if you just keep, and I know you watch or listen to Alex Hormozy, and he's kind of like
Mm.
what my influencers, and he said, if you basically do something like enough for long enough, it'd be like inconceivable and stupid that you wouldn't be successful. Like if you
Exactly.
just keep showing up. And I think that contributed to a lot of like where my business is now.
No, I think that's it. I honestly, I came from a similar background myself. I'm gonna give Alex Brown a shout out because she's the one that basically told me to stop being an idiot. I was the same way though. I was like, I'm not starting an Instagram. I don't post on my personal one, but like maybe twice a year if like something cool happens, right? And then she's like, dude, you don't have a social media. People have no idea if you're like a scammer or
Hmm.
like you don't even have like your face on there. And I was like, all right,
Yeah.
fine. I'll start posting. And we were in Hawaii at the time, on like an extended vacation, and I was like in the I was like in the car trying to figure out Canva. If you guys know me, you know that I am not good at Canva or at Reels or anything for that matter. So I was in the car, not looking at the beautiful scenery, the ocean, the water, nothing. I was just looking at my phone, trying to put together a little Canva. And if you guys go back on my Instagram, go to my it's like it's probably like my second or third picture. It's the worst quality thing you'll ever see in your entire life, and it's hysterical. But that's how I got started as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Alex. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think the thing too for me is that I realized like you get better at being a coach and running a business every day. Like if I look at my content from like literally 1 month ago, I'm like, oh, it's a little bit better today. Like I just
Mhm.
started, putting like really professional reel covers and learning to do apps. And, I'd say one thing too is like ask people. Every
Yeah.
coach that I've gone through in the fitness industry is pretty nice. If they're not, don't ask them. But we have obviously a really good community of people at C4F and other companies I've been in. And I'll tell people anything they want. It's not, some people think like, oh, it's all competitive and they're not going to tell me my secrets. I'm like, no, dude, you're going to have a different audience than us. There's
Yep.
millions and millions and millions of people, and there's only a finite amount of coaches, even though that's all we follow. So it seems like they're just
Yep.
everywhere, but they're not. And so I've, asked a lot of people for help, not only in like, a business coaching, but just people. I'll be like, dude, your content is, or like those cover photos are amazing. Where did you do those? Oh, yeah, I use CapCut. Oh, thanks so much. Now I go to learn how to use it. So that's been super helpful too.
Yeah, I think that's a great, great, great snippet there because I ask people all the time. Like I'm the coach, and I ask people. Like I brought in
Mhm.
a new student last week, and I saw his content, and I saw he was like being featured on different accounts, and I'm like, how do you go about doing that? And like then he started showing me like how like a different way that he advertises, and I'm like, this is like a whole realm of advertising, like with these like shout outs and things like that that I never even knew existed. But I feel like because you have to put your ego to the side, right? You have to accept that you're never gonna know everything, no matter how much,
Mhm.
like, people, like, expect that of you. Just ask. Ask, ask, ask everybody around you. They all know something that you don't, and you don't know how beneficial it could actually be, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, like I said, before I dove in, I just had to really tell myself, like, I mean, I had like a time frame for me, and I think that mine was like 3 years. I basically was like, in
Mhm,
3 years, not that I'm gonna like be where I want, but like
mhm.
you need to do it for 3 years. Like if nothing happens in 3 years, then maybe then something's wrong, right? Because within those 3 years, if you're not doing something right, you fix it until it
Exactly.
goes better. So for me, I just gave myself like a pretty long time horizon. I talked to a lot of other coaches that are like, I'll give myself a year. It's not long enough. I'm not saying you
Right.
can't make success, but like to build up a business, even for me and my business, it grew a lot within a year and a half. And
Mhm.
so I kind of was like always lagging behind. Like one of my other coaches was like, your business is built on duct tape and glue, which it was. Cause
It's a
it was just
scary
like
thing.
I was growing and then I'm like, oh, I have to have better systems and
Yep.
processes. And I know where me and my team are in a year. I'll look back and be like, what the hell are you doing?
Yep.
And that's part of it. And that's part of the process.
And that's
And so
okay.
yeah, I think having realistic expectations, and that will make it so you don't give up because you're like, nope, 3 years hasn't happened.
Yep.
I can't
And
stop.
and don't look at other people and see like all their systems and their quality of content and let yourself get discouraged because I'll tell you,
Mhm.
like I'm very much in the belief that I'm gonna jump and build the wings on the way down, right?
Yes,
Like for the first
100%.
3 months, we didn't have a CRM, right?
Yep.
We didn't have one, and then I'm like, I think it's probably time to get that. And
Yep.
then once you get a CRM, then it's the next thing and the next thing, and then you become
Yeah.
obsessed with like the back end, and you're like, holy
Yeah.
smoke, how did I go this long
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
having all this
It's
automation?
I think the thing that helped me the most was like like purposefully creating a lot of like motivation and momentum. Cause I know we're like, oh, motivation's not that important. And we coach like you need discipline. But motivation matters in the beginning when it's hard.
Oh, for
And
sure.
so for me, I just was like, asked my coaches, I'm like, what do I need to make money? Because if I'm making money, then I feel like it's paying off. It's the ultimate goal,
Mhm.
right? Like making money and helping people. And so he's like, you basically just need to like get somebody to get on a call, sell them, and then be a good coach. Like that's it. I'm like, okay, cool. I
Simplicity.
made it like, I don't know, 14% way through the course and I just stopped. I'm like, I have everything I need, like just to do those things. I'm not worried about my content. Actually, from going from 0 to 10K, basically, I posted pretty much never. Like
Right.
no, like 1/20th of the content I post now,
Mhm.
but I just was DMing people, DMing people, DMing people, getting on
Spamming.
calls,
Yeah.
and kind of grinding, and it worked. And then I'm like, wow, what would it be like if I had like some organic coming in, people just applying, you
Mhm.
know? And so that was definitely a huge help to kind of have that mindset.
Yeah, that's I love it, man. And it's just like I was, kind of like you telling me your story of when you made that jump. It made me kind of reflect back a little bit on like when I made my jump, and it's like you really don't like. So, okay, this is gonna sound so stupid. Okay, so bear with me, guys. But goals are really dumb in the beginning. Okay, I know that sounds just asinine. Okay, but, like, until you have context, you really don't have any, conceivable goals, right? So, like,
Hmm.
you can set a goal and you can set a timeline, but once you get in and you actually are working, and then you're gonna build that timeline more strategically once you're actually in there and doing it. So, like, that was always my issue, right? When I was at my day job, I would
Yeah.
sit here and try to, write down goals of how I wanted to go into sales full time, right? And I would write down these goals. I'm like, I don't know where to start. I don't know. Should my goal be 5K? Should it be 10? Should it be 100? I don't know. And I don't know what I don't know. So it kept psyching me out. So I,
Yeah.
like every time I wanted to quit my job and do it, I'm like, I don't even have any damn goals. Like, who am I?
Yeah. I mean,
So
it is hard. Like, I mean,
yeah.
so obviously, like for fitness coaches watching this, like us telling a client, like, well, what are your goals? And I'm sure we've had like, well, I don't know, I just want to get in better shape. That's them being like, I don't really know exactly where I'm going to be, but I just know I want to start making progress.
Mhm,
And so it's kind of the same thing with us. Like,
mhm.
sure, you can say a number, but like if you don't know how you're going to get there, it is hard, right? Like when we
Right.
know, oh, I want to, run a mile in this speed, or I want to be this body fat, like we know how to get there. So it's easy for us. But if you don't have like a roadmap, I do think it's more challenging. Like so much easier now for me to set pretty tangible goals that I feel more confident in. I'm not just like, it's not some dream or like wish in the wind. It's like,
Exactly.
hey, based on our past metrics, which is another
Boom.
point that
That's
you have
exactly.
to track your metrics and you have to be in business long enough. Like you do.
Mhm.
If you're in the first couple of months and you're like, this is so hard, yep, it is. And it's a lot of work. But like a year from now, you're going to be able to be like, okay, based on the first year, how do we do? And then year two.
Right,
Now, based on the past 2 years, now you can't say year one was a fluke. Like there's some
right.
trends. Now, the third year, you're like, wow, right? And so I'm actually looking forward to that, is being able to look back. And really, a lot of it comes with like imposter syndrome. I think we all suffer from it, even
Mhm.
slightly, where even for me, I'm like, is my business going to fall apart at any point? Like
Yeah,
way back in
exactly.
my head. Right. And I know it's not. Like we have tons of resigns and people extending for the years, and we got a really good year. But I kind of like fully won't believe until I've been in business like a few years. Like I
Exactly.
still struggle with that.
No, and I think it's totally normal, right? But you said something back there that I think was really important, and I just want to touch on that where it's like your goals. I'm not saying not to set goals. You could have like a big goal, but the small ones leading up to that have to be very fluid, right?
Yep.
So like for some context, like my goal was always to make 10K, right? Like I'll be fully transparent here. I was in healthcare. I was working as like an organ recovery coordinator. I was making 7 to 8 thousand a month. And I was like, cool, if I can go into sales full time and make 10K and never step foot in a hospital again, by the grace of God, of course, and never have to take care of like any tragic instances, I'll be the happiest person in the world.
Yeah.
Right. But I was just like, I don't know how to get to that 10K. So I don't even know if that's like realistic. Right. So like you have your big goal and then you're like, okay, now let's just take a step in that direction. Oh, wait a minute. Before I get to 10K, I better fix this. Oh, now that I fixed that, now I have a new leak in the bucket and a new one and a new one. And then you can start setting goals once you have a real path, but just get started.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, like, the best way to lose weight, right, is just like you wouldn't tell the client to do everything at once. You're like, go to the gym and hit this macro. And they're like,
Yep.
okay. And you're like, and then do it again. And then do it again. And then before you know it, you've lost 10 pounds and 20 pounds. And then once they've lost 20 pounds and they have like, oh, I'm losing weight at this rate and I'm doing it at this rate. You're right. That it's easier to set a goal. And I think that's what helped me is I'm like, realize what actually pushes the needle forward in my business, which was like,
Mhm.
basically like lead generation, sales, client delivery. And I'm like, if I can just do those things over and over and over
Sure.
again, I'll eventually hit my big numbers that I had for myself. So,
Yep.
and it kind
And
of worked for the most part.
just don't beat yourself up, like, on those
Yeah.
small steps, right?
Yeah.
"Ah,
For
damn it,
sure.
I didn't hit that goal yet. I didn't hit that goal," but it's like, "Okay, but what else have you accomplished?" Right?
Yeah.
Did your
It's good
sales
not to hit goals. I mean,
Yes.
I think it's good not to hit goals because then you get to say, why didn't I hit it?
Yep.
And then you know what, if you're doing everything perfect, you never see the leaks in the boat. And so for me, I'm
Exactly.
like, I want to not hit them or like, man, my close rate wasn't good. Why? What
Yep.
am I doing wrong? And then I can fix it and be better. Because if you don't have anything going wrong in your business, you're not digging deep enough.
You're definitely not, growing as fast as you could, right?
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
if your business is on autopilot and it's exactly where you want, great, good for you, 2 thumbs up, we're rooting for you.
Yeah.
But if your business is coasting, you have 0 extra stress, like, and you're not where you want to be, it's, like, time to do some reflection and say, "Hey, wait a minute,"
Yeah.
right? "What can I be doing to push the needle forward faster?"
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So, I think, with kinda taking that jump, bring us up to speed with, like, where we are now. Like, what is, like, the structure of your team? And I guess what's been the most challenging part of kinda, like, working into, like, that CEO role?
Yeah. So right now I have 5 employees. One of them's like really, really part time. I have 3 other coaches. I'd probably, and this might be a little bit different for you guys listening because we do in person training. Now, our in
Mhm.
person training is what we call hybrid training. So, they're most of our clients, like 90% of them, are full online and full in person. And the way that we kind of pitch it is like, hey, everybody's an online client with Pursuit, right? Because we want that to be the bread and butter. That way,
Mhm.
when somebody comes in person, even if they leave, we still have them, right?
Nice.
And honestly, if you guys have ever trained in person, I personally believe it's the only way to train somebody effectively. Just because if they're going 2 or 3 days a week and they leave, they have no nutritional accountability, no access to you, right?
Mhm.
So that method, and it does make the business way more complicated. So I'm not going to dive into it too much because it really is 2 separate businesses, to be completely
Right.
honest with you. Like separate marketing strategy, separate clientele. If you have an in-person gym, it's who lives within 10 miles of me, right?
Mhm.
Like versus you marketing online is for everybody. So um, yeah, the business has grown. I think one of the biggest challenges for being CEO for me is I am very, very type A. I work a lot. I like to work a lot,
Sure.
and I'm very ambitious and driven. So I've been at places where I just like literally have gotten like physically ill, burnout, all that stuff. So I've had to learn to have like more self control, better systems, um, and understanding like I said, kind of what pushes the needle? Like, does this need to be done now? Can it wait
Right.
till tomorrow? And so I think the balance was the hardest part for me. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that's probably the biggest challenge.
Balance it in what ways, if you don't mind?
Just like life balance, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, I know, coaching other coaches too, like it's a struggle. If you are
Mhm.
starting out, you might not even be in this full time right now. And so it's a lot of work. Um,
Mhm.
but the way that I look at it, is man, if I can make, like you said, let's just use the 10K a month,
It's
way
easy.
more than I'd ever make at a gym. Okay. And
Mhm.
if I'm making that and it's mine and it's my business, like I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And so the challenge for me was like life balance because I have a family.
Mhm.
Like I would want to work 14, 16 plus hours every day. I'm totally fine doing that. I have no issue with it.
Mhm.
But I have other responsibilities too. So
Of course. Of course. And with that 10K too, it's like that seems to be a lot of people's goal, right?
mhm,
10K, then after you get to 10, then you start pushing for like the 20 and 30, right? That's where we
yep,
always talk about like that 30K mark is where you become the CEO. Typically, you're working towards it to get to that point, but 30 to 50 is like where you get to be the boss, right? You get to hire a DMer, a VA, a couple ACs, maybe a sales rep at that point. But like that 10K, of course, that's going to be your first stepping stone to that. And when you're setting those goals, If I can offer any advice for that, find your bottom number, find your bottom line. What's your break even? Okay. So keep really, really good. This is a personal finance snippet, guys. Keep a really, really, really good grip on what your personal finances are, what they look like, what you're spending money on, where it's going. Okay. Average that out for a couple months before you make your big leap and see what it actually looks like. Okay. Because
Mhm.
you'd be surprised. Most people would be, at least. Maybe your expenses are only, I don't know, 2 or 3 grand a month. Maybe you live pretty modestly. It's like, yeah, you're shooting for 10K and you only hit six. Don't beat yourself up about it, because you're making it happen and you're staying
Yeah.
above water.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think too, like it's weird because as I hit the 10K mark and the 20K and like kept growing, you're you look I look back and I'm like, man, my goal only used to be 10K. Like it's
Yep.
just kind of what, what happens, it you get accustomed to it. So I think the thing too is for my business, and I'll just be super transparent, is I have like different margins. And I had a margin issue where I was like, wow, we're bringing in like, you know, high 20K a month. But like, wow, I'm really not taking home that much. And
Mhm.
and so it is really important. But I did kind of what you're saying is I knew like, hey, how much do I need to take home?
Mhm.
Cool. I'm okay with that. I don't want to just keep making more money and raise my level of living. I'd
Mhm.
rather just like be okay now because it's perfectly fine. Like,
Yep.
and I'm like, I'd rather just be okay now, reinvest, reinvest, reinvest,
Exactly.
coaching, masterminds, everything. Because the thing too is like you said, to be a CEO, which I'm definitely not in that role because I still have to hire a closer, but like is where I
Yeah.
can pull
Close.
out of it, you know, and for the most part. And so I'm still very much deep in my business. And so my goal now is to like to start removing myself. But I also
Mhm.
know that like the only way that I can do that is by making more money, is by, growing as a business. And so I think that that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah. And that's so smart too, is like, understand your margins. I'm gonna say this. If you guys listen to this every freaking week, you're gonna hear me say the same thing. Know your margins, right? Know your margins, protect your margins, and you know, be smart, like, as you're scaling. Like, when your income goes up, like, naturally, like, your level of living will typically go up. But obviously, like Stefan, it sounds like you're being extremely smart in that regard. And it's like, you're gonna get that first paycheck, you're gonna get that first 10K month or that first 20K month, and you're gonna think, holy smokes, what should I do with this? Right. And as a business owner, just be careful, right? Be careful, because business, it has a tendency to, maybe do a little bit of up and down in the beginning until you really build that stability. Do not go blow your first 10 or 20K on anything silly. Please reinvest it back into the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Right.
I probably like some of you guys, I work pretty, people usually work better under pressure. That's what I've seen.
Right.
And so for me, I actually like when I bought the house, we've been doing upgrades for a year and a half and we put a ton
Mhm.
of money into it. Obviously, it's an appreciating asset, but
Of course.
like I actually didn't want to keep a ton of money in my business account for that reason because I stay hungry. I want to stay hungry because I started
Mhm.
to get to this point where I'm like, oh, like I'm fine. I have a lot of money in there. Like I'm cool. And then as soon as I took my foot off the gas,
Yep.
I didn't have the systems in place and it just started coasting down. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not there yet. And I've seen that with a lot of
Mhm.
other coaches. They hit the 10K mark and they're like, I'm like,
Yep.
no, 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 no. You can't wipe your hands clean. Not even
Oh,
close.
I know exactly. And again, I'm going to be very transparent here. I was the same way. Like, our success came, like, pretty much overnight, if I'm being honest, right? Like, to give some background, like, to how I got started, if you guys don't know, but it was like, I was doing the healthcare thing. I was closing for my girlfriend Brooke and for a couple friends on the side, like doing their fitness closing. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go full time. I'm going to be a full time closer for like 5 different coaches, selling for all of them. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was selling for 5 coaches, right, while working 12-hour shifts, like 3 to 5 days a week. That was miserable,
Yeah,
right?
sounds bad.
It was the worst. So when I quit, I had 5 coaches that I was selling for. I was selling, 10, 12 hours a day again. And when you sell that volume, and, I actually wound up hitting 10K my first month I quit, which was like really cool. Right. But then we started going into like more coaching and doing exactly what we're doing now. And like the success, like, I basically just woke up in June, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, I looked
Yeah.
at my bank account and I couldn't believe what basically was happening, right? And my first inclination, being an idiot, thankfully I didn't, but I started shopping, right? Started doing some
Yeah.
online shopping. I was looking at different watches. I went to a camping world and I was looking at different campers, and we started doing all this shopping with like the hypotheticals of what I could do with it. And the smartest thing I did is I didn't buy a thing. I like itched or I scratched that itch of like knowing I could do it, but I didn't pull the trigger on anything, right? And I reinvested everything back into more sales coaching, more coaching, more coaching, more coaching, business coaching. Everything went back into the business. And thank the Lord that I did that, because that is why it wasn't like a one hit wonder. Like, that's what created stability. If I would have bought those things, I probably would have had a panic attack the
Yeah.
next 6 months.
Yeah. And I tell my team this is, and I give them, like money for continuing education and try to like build their value. Cause I think the thing for me is if my business fell apart tomorrow, I could go basically work for any company and make six figures
Hmm.
just with the skills I've acquired.
For sure.
And I couldn't say that like 2 years ago, honestly.
Hmm.
And so I think me investing in coaching has been 100%. Like, first of all, it's paid myself back. I don't even know the ROI ton,
Right.
20 fold, but not even that. It's just like, I feel more confident and valuable as a person. Like, I know now how to run a company,
Mhm.
generally. And so I think that that was like, that's just some advice I would say is like, for me, I mean, I know even when you and I talked, I was like, I don't know if I want sales training.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty good at my closing.
Stefan was
And,
a tough sale, guys, by the way.
and,
I
and
worked at him for months.
yeah. And just to find out that like, maybe I wasn't as good as I thought. And that's kind of what the humbling thing. Cause I even had a point where I was like, you're either going to let somebody dive in and tear apart your sales. And if you're good, then they'll tell you you're good. If you suck,
Mhm.
they'll tell you you suck. And then Sean reviewed my call, and I was like, okay, that was a bad call. But he gave me some insight, and I've had insight since joining, C4F, where I'm like, wow, man, you had all this stuff to improve that you just thought was okay. Like
Mhm.
the whole time, I'm like, man, how much money did I leave on the table?
Isn't
And
that
so
crazy?
that's kind of, being at that point where you're always like, not that you want to have not be confident, but always at the point where you're like, I kind of suck. Like,
Right.
I'm just so humble where I'm not good until I'm good, which I don't even know if I'll ever get to that point. I don't want to get to that
I was
point.
gonna say.
I want to be at a point where I'm just like, hey, like I'm confident in what I'm doing now, but like I know I have so much room to improve. And and so that was I think a huge eye opener for me because I didn't have a coach in business for like a year. I
Mhm.
stopped getting coaching in like October, and then I know I joined like a little bit ago. So it was like a year without any like
Wow.
official guidance. So it's been pretty super helpful.
Yeah. Amazing, man. And, without saying numbers, Stefan came in and just, I mean, he blew it up. He came in, he was a sponge, he was an open book. It was like, working with him, he always wants feedback, which is amazing. He shows up to every single coaching call, he implements everything we tell him. And, kind of watching everything that's happened as a result of that puts a smile on my face if you guys are watching the YouTube video of this. But it's just incredible what can happen when like a student comes in and they just like all they want to do is learn, and then the things that happen after that are just phenomenal. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, and I mean, it's not just me. Like I've seen, in the group of a lot of other people that you've helped. So you're doing an awesome job. And I think too, like I think the biggest area that coaches struggle in is sales, 100%. And I know that when I used to coach coaches is like a
mhm,
lot of them. I mean, just to say I'm going to be a fitness coach, you have to be confident in what you're doing, right? Like
of
helping
course.
people, programming for the most part. And like the biggest area of struggle I always saw in that other group was like sales, like,
Mhm.
objection handling, all that. And so I definitely think that, I mean, I wish this would have been in sooner when I very first started. It would have been way easier.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I think that getting help in sales is super important.
I'm with you 100%. I mean, obviously it means less coming from me because, that's what we do. But just to play off of that though, it's like every time you think you're good, I made a post about this the other day. Like every time that I felt like I was good enough at sales, I was like, yep, it's time for more coaching.
Mhm.
because as soon as that thought kind of comes through my head, I realize that I'm not in like a learning mode anymore. I'm in a coasting mode, right?
Yeah.
If I looked at you and I said, dude, I'm the best at sales, that means I have shut my ears to everything else that's around me, and then I'm stagnant. But, I would say, like, if I have one, like, redeeming quality, it's if I can brag on myself for just a second, it's that I learn from you guys as much as you learn from me, right? Like, I'll see
Mhm.
you guys will say things on a role play, and I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, say that one more time. Alright, now try it like this." I'm like, "Damn, that sounds pretty good." Like, that's something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just that back and forth, like that seesaw. Like, we're both working towards a common goal. We both want to figure out this objection. So let's just keep jamming out and see what we come up with. And I feel like that's where most of our hooks and our reframes and like our objection handling sequences that you guys, would hear, we're like, where in the heck did that come from? Right. It's just jamming out with students for hours on end and figuring out like, whoa, okay, that sounded good. Maybe that didn't, and just building something, right?
Right. Yeah. I think something that's been eye-opening for me is like, not gonna lie, I used to kind of want to be one of those free consumers, right? I think we all are like, oh, I'll follow them and I'll take what they want. But I
Hmm.
think that for sales specifically, I think it's a lot of repetitive practice because if
Yep.
you're on a sales call and you're like thinking about like how to use it, you're never going to know. It's like jujitsu. Like you don't want to think of the move when you're in the position. It's too late.
Right.
And so for me, it's just been listening in on the calls, kind of practicing the script, using what I've learned on the calls, and you just get a little bit better every single time.
That's such a great reference, right? Like, I don't fight jujitsu, but I understand exactly what you're saying because, you can study, like you can listen and watch the reels, and that's great, guys. Like that's phenomenal. But here's the thing: a 30 or a 60-second reel is not going to help you long term, right? You have to have like the muscle memory. Like your brain is a muscle. You have to exercise it daily. So if you're not getting the actual live practice in daily, it's not, the neurons are not going to be connected. So when you get hit with that spouse objection next time, you can't flip through a script really quick and land on that one really awesome reframe. It has to come instantly. And it only comes from repetition and practice, right? Just like working out. If Stefan, if let's say this, Stefan, do you feel like you're strong at the gym?
For the most part.
Right. Okay. So if you kept that mentality, you're like, nah, I'm strong. I'm not going to go tomorrow. I'm not going to go tomorrow. And then you consistently become inconsistent. Is that strength is it gonna stay or is it gonna decline?
No, it's going to decline.
Sales, no different. No different at all. If you think I'm already pretty good at sales and you think that that's just going to maintain and you don't practice and you don't implement anything new, it will decline over time 100%.
Yeah. Well, you guys say this too really well. Like there'll be people on the call that they don't ask any questions. You're like, oh, so you're closing at 100%? Like, oh no. And like, well, then you need to ask questions.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. It's like there's room. Unless you're perfect and you're closing every single person, there's room. And we all know how much fitness coaching is. So you're leaving literally a lot of money on the table,
A lot.
by not being better at your job. And the person that you probably didn't close probably needed it the most. So you're
Yep.
also not helping that person.
Hmm. And the big thing, and I want to tread carefully when I say this, but most people are closable, right? I would say 8 or 9 out of 10 people are closable. So like if you're not closing people, if you miss, 5 calls in a row and you just keep marking it up as the market or as the lead quality, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. It's like you have to just stop and just take extreme ownership. No matter how much of a lost cause that sales call felt like, you have to sit there and reflect, what could I have done differently, right?
Mhm.
Like one of our reps, Wayne, and we use this on calls all the time, but he did it so perfectly the other day. I don't know if you're on that coaching call, but he was objection handling, going round and round and round and round with a client. And at the end of the day, she just shut off and she just said, "Listen, I cannot sign up today. Okay, it's nothing you've done. I just can't do it. Plain and simple. Okay." And Wayne, he did a complete pattern interrupt, just like a total record scratch moment, right? So you guys write this down. He said, "Okay, well, listen, I apologize. My job is to, help clients kind of take that first step to cross that line and to get started on their health and fitness journey. And today I was not able to do that. Okay. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to review this call and I'm going to see how I can become better. Okay. And again, I apologize. I failed you today on the call on not being able to help you overcome these fears and take that first step. So again, I'm sorry and I apologize. And she's like, whoa, wait a minute. No, no, no. It's not you. It's me. It's actually just this. And then she tells him the real objection that she would not give up before. It's just like little pattern interrupts like that, like taking extreme ownership, right? In each
Mhm.
and every situation is only going to give you positive results.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So if you guys are leaving a lot of these sales calls and you're like, nah, that one wasn't closable, that one wasn't, and you feel like this has become like a big pattern, just stop, review your call, send a call in. We do free call reviews all the time. Send it in, let us take a look, and then we'll kind of tell you if we think it was closable.
Yeah. I mean, that was something I know, like you had me send one into Sean, I believe, and that was a
Mhm,
huge help for me. That was like the first eye opener. And I knew it wasn't a good call. Like that's
mhm.
why I had you review
And
it.
that's okay. Yeah.
But I also was like, okay, well, those pop up once in a while. And now looking back, like you said, I think he was probably closable.
Mhm,
Obviously I didn't close him and it was kind of unfortunate, but I used to be in that spot too where it's very easy to be like, yeah, but dude, it's so annoying being with these people. Like nobody has money. Like I
mhm.
only want to work with people that really want to do it. Like good
Exactly.
luck. Good luck. If that's who
Yeah.
you're waiting for, I mean, maybe if you have a huge social media following and you get a lot of like people reaching out to
Mhm,
you all the time, but probably if you're listening to this, I'm guessing that's not you.
mhm.
Um, Maybe it is, but I started to get to the point where I was like blaming the person on the call a lot.
Yep.
And there are like subjectively, like there's
Oh, of course.
some that are just probably not going to close. But like you said, 8 out of 10 is like pretty good. So if
Right.
you're closing at 80%, like awesome. But if you're not, then you are leaving stuff on the table.
Exactly. And just do the math one time. Just do the math. Just think, okay, I'm closing 3 out of every 10. What's happening on that other 7, right?
Yeah.
Let's say 5 were closable. Let's play this game, right? Like 5 were closable. What's my average package? Maybe it's 3 grand. Like, hey, you left 15K on the table that week or that month. And it's when you take that extreme ownership and have like that eye-opening experience with yourself, you can be like, yeah, it's time to get this thing checked out.
Right. Well, like, and as business owners, it's like, wouldn't you do anything to be able to help more people and make more money? You
Mhm.
know? And so I think like getting investing in something that can help you do that makes sense just from a number standpoint. You know what I mean? And I think we just have to let our ego down and be like, hey, if this can help me make 15K a month continuously, like why would I not do this? You know what I
Like,
mean?
yeah, you won't get those returns in the stock market.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Well, guys, Stefan, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend, interviewing you, working with you, kind of seeing you and your company, do the skyrocket thing. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you guys have any questions for Stefan, where can they reach you?
You can reach me on my Instagram. It's at pursuit_HP. And then you'll see my personal link in there too. So
Beautiful. Like he said, he's an open book. He loves to help, whether it be clients or other fitness coaches. So I think he's a phenomenal resource if you guys are ever, kind of questioning anything. I'm sure he's more than willing. I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I
yeah,
feel like he's more than willing to
yeah,
help out.
for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Stefan. Yeah, take care and have a great day, my friend.
Thanks. You too.